So RJ, the other day on one of our videos, someone left a very interesting comment as to one of the things we could talk about during one of these debate segments we have. And that was if you could have 23 clones of one NHL player to make a team out of, who would that be? Right? And instantly your mind goes to, well, let me just grab like the top player out there, right? Like let me just go Connor McDavid, right? He's the best player. Why wouldn't I just want 23 of them? But as we were both thinking about this, as we were kind of talking about what an interesting idea it was, and obviously we made this video, so if you have any ideas for future debate topics for us, leave them down in the comments. We do read it, and we will, if it's something that we like or intrigues us, we will make a video about it. Um, One of the things that I think we both came around to is you might not want a forward for this, right? Because there's obviously a lot of defensemen that they already know how to play defense, um, but then there's also a lot of defensemen that are big point producers and guys that are very skilled offensively and can drive offense and generally they're maybe a little bigger and so one of the things is we were both talking about it is we both came around to wanting offensive defensemen. We thought that was probably your best bet. So RJ, why don't you tell us who your choice was ultimately? As far as this is just active NHL players. Like if you were to stick a current NHL player into a cloning machine and make 23 of them, who did you decide to do that with?
So I figured that you could make the best team out of 23 Brent Burnses. And to me, he seemed almost like the obvious pick. I mean, first of all, he's played both positions. He's played defense, he's played forward, and he's excelled at both. And the other thing that set him apart versus other offensive defensemen is the size and the power. He's 6'5", 230. He's got that big size, but he still has, the slick hands that you get in a forward. I mean, if you saw that highlight reel goal this season, he scored against the Minnesota Wild,
Mm-hmm.
peeking through all five of their players, before going backhand top shelf. He's really not lacking in any area. He doesn't have elite high end speed, but he's certainly not slow by any stretch. And he is 36, but he really hasn't slowed down at all. I mean, he's a fitness freak. He has a mobile gym in his RV that he takes with him when they go camping in the summer. Like he just stays in great shape. He's still the NHL leader in ice time, averages 27 minutes a night. So you can make the shift length just about anything you want. He's not going to get tired.
Mm-hmm.
But really what sets him apart is that size. I mean, he's going to forecheck a team of any other player into oblivion. I mean, you could think of like a team of Connor McDavid's or a team of Sidney Crosby's. He's just going to forecheck a team like that to death with that kind of size, where they're not going to be able to have an answer for that. And plus the element of it's all of them. So he's playing goalie too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't really speak to his goaltending ability, or any of these guys, but he's got great goalie size. He's at 6'5", 230. I want my goalie to be that size. And, watching the Sharks play, when they pull the goalie, Burns is always that guy back guarding the empty net. And he's made some pretty big saves over the years just doing that. He's got great instincts for that. I think actually in their last couple games, they've had to pull the goalie each of the two times against Vegas. And both times he's made a great save on a Vegas forward to keep the game going. So I think you're going to get a goaltending edge too. So Dylan, who did you think would be the best 23 clone roster?
So I went with the former Seattle Thunderbird, Shay Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights.
Trying to win over the Seattle fans already, huh?
Yeah, it's I totally agree with you when it comes to Brent Burns' size and what just having line after line after line of that coming at you would do to you physically. I guess one of the things we didn't talk about is would you want this over an 82 game season, a playoff series, or just one game? But
Uh,
uh, but I decided to go with Shea Theodore because I don't believe I've ever seen a defenseman be so good at avoiding contact. And this is before I knew you'd chosen Brent Burns. But I don't think I've ever seen a defenseman be able to avoid contact the way Shay Theodore does. And this ultimately, I guess, comes around to my philosophy, which was beyond just picking an offensive defenseman. I think the most important aspect of hockey, particularly today, is just skating ability. And not necessarily pure speed, but your ability to maneuver and your ability to keep your balance while you're checking or being checked, your ability to avoid contact, all of that stuff. And I just think Shea Theodore is the best pure skating offensive defenseman that there is in the NHL right now, and particularly when it comes to avoiding contact. So ultimately, I went with him. He obviously has all of the offensive skills you would need to round out four forward lines of Shea Theodore. He's solid in his own zone. He's maybe, he doesn't have quite the size of Brent Burns, so he doesn't necessarily have the reach or the length of a Brent Burns. Definitely can't speak to his goaltending ability, but I kind of just, decided goaltending, they're all probably going to be bad at it, right? So I went ahead and I didn't go with that. But you are right. Brent Burns has made some good saves when he's been asked to kind of stand in front of the empty net. But the bottom line is his team is needing to pull the goalie late in games, and Shea Theodore's isn't, because they're winning. And Shea Theodore plays a big part in that. He takes on all of the big minutes for Vegas. So I just think he's got the pedigree. He's young. He's super skilled, and at the end of the day, to me, skating was the most important factor when you're building out a whole team. Because if you have the skating ability, you can kind of do anything you want out there. And so I decided to go with that, and I decided to go with Shea Theodore because I just think he's the best when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I definitely see the argument to be made for skating ability being the most important thing. And that's where I think Burns isn't lacking enough that it makes a big enough difference. Mm-hmm. But speaking of skating ability, how about Connor McDavid? Because you got to think there's an argument to be made for him. And certainly, I mean, that's the biggest weakness I could think of for my team of Brent Burnses is a team of Connor McDavid's. It could just expose him with their speed.
Yeah, because it's not just like, oh, they skate really fast in a straight line. If you had a whole team of Connor McDavid's, they're able to skate at full speed, which is already faster than anybody else. And then they're also able to think and process and make plays at that speed too, right? And that's what Connor McDavid does. And you could argue what holds players like Connor McDavid, or even going back to the great one, Wayne Gretzky, one of the few things, if you say anything holds them back, is the fact that they're not always playing with people that can play the game as fast as they can. Right? All of a sudden, that doesn't become a problem if he's playing on a line with two other McDavids, right? They can all be going, 30 miles an hour skating down the ice, passing back and forth and making plays and scoring goals. And I do think, more so than like Sidney Crosby, who certainly, 5 years ago would have been the obvious choice, I think. McDavid's pure speed and his ability to make such intricate and skilled plays at that speed really makes you think, there might be a really solid argument there for that.
Right. And, of course, you look at the, maybe deficiencies on the defensive side of the game, where when he's hemmed in his own zone, especially against like a team of Brent Burns, you might have some trouble. But you might really be able to say, this team will just outscore you. We're going to get scored on. If we're trapped in our own zone, it's not going to end well for us, but it doesn't matter. We're going to outscore you.
Right. And, who's to say what kind of defensive system you would even try to run in a situation like that. The other thing is the speed means you're going to be drawing penalties. A team full of Brent Burnses or Shea Theodores, if they're having to keep up with that team of Connor McDavid's, they're going to be hooking those guys. They're going to be tripping them all over the place, just trying to keep up. And then once you're talking about a power play, like, forget it, right? 5 Connor McDavid's against 4 anybody's is
shooting on a goalie who's not like an NHL goalie.
Exactly. So I think there's something to be said for McDavid being the obvious choice, and I think that's because of the speed and his skating ability, more so than a Crosby. Even a Crosby a few years ago, I think he's probably the best all-around player. still even, but I don't know that he excels so fully in one specific aspect of the game that having, five of them out there at a time, you could really say, oh, I see this dominating against anybody else. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I mean, maybe they'd be like the clone team version of like a New York Islanders, where they're not don't excel in any one specific skill, but they're just going to work you to death with their
Mm-hmm.
system. I could
Yeah.
see it almost being like that.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's one thing. Obviously we've been talking about the problem being goaltending because none of these people are goaltenders. Do you think that there is a goaltender out there that you would choose for something like this?
um, that's an interesting question because you have only limited times that you'll even see a goalie, shoot the puck or skate around. I mean, you see little videos of, like, I've seen Carey Price, out at practice,
Mm-hmm.
kind of playing skater for a little bit, and Marc-Andre Fleury, another one. Those are the two that I've ever really seen. And of course, they're going to be, dominant in net. But I don't think that's really enough. For the onslaught of shots they're going to take from a team of like McDavid's or Burns or whatever
Yeah.
whatever you do, or Theodore's. I don't know. I feel like the one guy who might have some kind of outside chance is Mike Smith. And I know
Yeah.
he's older now, but he's actually been playing really well in net this season. He's got the size to forecheck,
Mm-hmm.
and he has the shot.
Yes.
Mike Smith would be my pick.
No, Mike Smith's an excellent pick, I think. My pick was going to be Flower just because I think of any goalie in the NHL right now, Flower is the one that is most willing to try to play a puck. Even if it's in a position he should not be trying ever to be playing a puck, he's going to go for it. So I was just going to say, though, that offensive mind, I'll just go with that. But yeah, I think Mike Smith is probably, if not the best choice, definitely one of the top couple choices out there because his puck handling skills forever have been, top three in any, era he's kind of played through. Um, and I think even if you open it up to like all time goalies, right? You go to, obviously, to Brodeur. When you think puck handling, I'm still not sure I would choose someone like that. I don't think the benefits of having an actual goalie in net would matter compared
No,
to the deficiencies you'd be lacking everywhere else.
you need someone who's going to be able to make 80, 85 saves a game while maybe trying to chip in one goal.
Well, now here's the one thing is you could essentially, as they're getting worn out from having to face that onslaught, you could just be rotating them in and out with another version of themselves. So you could have
Right.
like one play 10 minutes, and as they get tired, you just swap in the backup or whatever, and you just keep going back and forth. So you
Yeah, I
always
mean
have a fresh one.
that's a whole other segment we could
I know.
the systems that you'd come up with
Yeah.
to utilize these players the best you could.
Yeah, it's such a nice broad topic to be talking about. Um, so I guess I kind of talked about it there, going back in time, looking at all goalies. But if you were to look through the history of hockey, it would you still be sticking with Brent Burns, or is there someone else you would be choosing if you could have any NHL player, past or present, in their prime? Would you be choosing someone else?
Yeah, I would. And I mean, you kind of have to have the like era adjusted caveat that, I mean, you could
Yeah.
make an argument that like a third NHL third liner today might, be better than one-on-one than, one of the top players in the 60s or 70s, just because of how much harder the training and the, they're
Mm-hmm.
bigger and all that stuff. But throwing that aside, and doing kind of era adjusted, I do think there's a more obvious pick, and it is another offensive defenseman, but he's a guy that really created that whole style of game, and really revolutionized the game of hockey to include that sort of thing. And that's Bobby Orr.
Mm-hmm.
The mix between the skating, the puck handling, the shooting, the way that you could kind of get the best of both worlds from him. And so I think Bobby Orr in his prime, it would be cool to see, what a team of 23 of those guys could do, certainly against anyone else from his era. I think if you're talking, when he played, if you had to just pick, a 23-man clone team to face each other then,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
no doubt.
the greatest discrepancy, in how one player would do versus the other players of his generation.
Yeah, and I think even today, it would be he would be right up there with anybody, because of the skating ability, his playmaking ability, his shot, literally everything about it. Um, Bobby Orr was one of the top people I was thinking of, and then I thought of two things, and I kind of moved away from the offensive defenseman thing here, but I thought of the early '90s Penguins, and I thought, wouldn't it be great? Like, who would you rather have? A team of Yagers in their prime or a team of Lemieux in their prime? Because I feel like as far as forwards go, those would be the two people at the top of my list if I had to build a team all time from. And I think they both bring something a little different. I feel like with Lemieux, you'd have more of a complete game. You have a little bit more size, and certainly I think defensively the team would be more solid. But for some reason, I was just coming around to Yager as like, certainly it would be the most amazing fun team to watch if there was just 23 Yagers all playing with each other, and the flow and the hair would just be outstanding. And if you were having to construct a team, you could literally build it and know for the next 30 years you didn't have to make a single roster move because they were just going to be there.
Yep.
But I don't know. I came around to Yager. I think it would be a really fun team to watch, and I think it would be kind of like the McDavid thing where, yeah, they're gonna let in a bunch of goals, but there's a good chance they're just gonna outscore you.
Yep. I like that pick. That's a really fun team. And yeah, I think certainly, against people, from that era too. I mean, they're just going to outscore you, and they're going to, play a better, more exciting brand of hockey while doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that pick. And yeah, as great as Mario Lemieux is, and a better, I think, player individually, with 23 of them, I think Yager might be the guy.
Yeah. So that was our thoughts on this, really interesting and fun topic to talk about and discuss. We had a lot of fun brainstorming all of this stuff, and then obviously talking about it here. So please, if you think of anything like that, leave it down in the comments. We'll take a look. We'll talk about it, and there's a good chance we'll make a video just like this about it. Yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and leave those comments.